And welcome back to the show. It's me, Hugh, and I got Sandra.
Wow, that's a very cool effect.
Isn't that cool?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Okay, we're back on the show. Okay, we're going to have a very interesting conversation.
We're switching gears.
Yep. We got Jack-Gibbons here, the chair of the Ontario Clean Air Alliance, and great to have you on the show, Jack. And so let's talk, the whole energy thing in Ontario these days is, everybody's complaining about it. The rates have gone through the roof. I think the last time, maybe I was telling you it was at an event that you guys had a few years ago, and I think at that time they were saying that Ontario was way less conservative or conservationist with our power use per person in the province was way higher than New York State. The reason being because our rates were so low because they were being subsidized, and now our rates are through the roof and industries are leaving the province as a result. What is the state of electricity generation in Ontario these days?
Well, you're right. Our electricity rates are high, and they're going to be higher and higher if we proceed with a Premier Wind's plan to rebuild 10 of our aging nuclear reactors. Nuclear power is a very high cost, unreliable, and an unsafe option to meet our electricity needs. Unfortunately, Premier Wind is committed to spending somewhere between $26 billion and $80 billion to rebuild old nuclear reactors that were designed in the 1960s or the 1970s. This simply makes no sense.
Why
Just think if you needed a car. Yeah. Would you go to a junkyard and buy an old 1970s car and spend a fortune to have it rebuilt? Or would you just go and buy a brand new, modern, 21st century high-efficiency car? Well, to ask the question is to answer it. But we're going backwards. We're in the 21st century, but we're refocusing on the 1950s solutions to keep our lights on.
So why is she doing that, Jack?
Well, that's a very good question, which you should put to her. It simply makes no sense. It means higher electricity bills. It means we're draining our provincial infrastructure budget, money that should be spent on transit and roads and bridges and hospitals and schools. We're squandering on rebuilding old nuclear reactors, and it's going to lead to increased greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a policy that makes no sense.
Now, how does it lead to increased greenhouse gas? I think one of the advantages nuclear proponents would cite is that you're not burning fossil fuels, so you're not creating carbon dioxide. So how does nuclear...
Well, the nuclear power plants are unreliable, and therefore they require backup from our gas-fired power plants. Take, for example, the Darlington nuclear station. Since it came into service in the 1990s, for 1 hour out of every 6, it's been down for repairs. And when it's down for repairs, how do we keep the lights on? Yeah. We go to the gas plants for backup. And the gas plants spew out the greenhouse gas emissions that are causing dangerous climate change. So it's not a smart solution. If we're going to nuclear, that means gas plants, that means greenhouse gas emissions for backup. Because they're unreliable, they don't operate 24/7.
It's also called dirty energy, right? Nuclear energy is called dirty, isn't that? Is that
well,
correct?
Certainly. It creates highly toxic radioactive waste that will last for hundreds of thousands of years, and we don't have a permanent long-term solution to dealing with those wastes.
Okay. Well, and you'd think something like Fukushima would be a wake-up call to anybody. We've got Pickering, less than 20 miles from where we're sitting, and
Pickering is the closest nuclear power plant to a major urban area in North America. Within 30 kilometers of Pickering, 2.2 million people live, and it's irresponsible to subject those 2.2 million people to a potentially catastrophic accident when we don't need to operate Pickering anymore. Pickering is an old, very high-cost nuclear power plant. If we were to shut Pickering down now, we would actually lower our electricity bills by about $900 million a year.
Now, does the Wynne government know this?
Well, they certainly should know it.
Yeah, I guess
We've been telling them if they have, and they should have been listening.
Well, it's like and it doesn't matter which party has been in power over the last 50 years. Everybody has supported or been behind the nuclear program, have they not? I mean, nobody has. The nuclear program in Ontario has never retreated. It's never receded. It always has seemed to been advancing since its inception.
Well, it's true. Both the Liberals and the Tories have historically and still today are big supporters of nuclear power. Bob Rae, when he was Premier, he put a moratorium on nuclear power. So he did slow it down for a while.
Okay. All right.
So what
put a moratorium on new nuclear power development.
What is the alternative? Obviously, the Ontario Clean Air Alliance has an alternative.
Right.
What do you propose? Where can we go?
Well, we've got a three-pronged alternative.
Okay.
And the first option is to import low-cost water power from Quebec. You know, we're very lucky to be located right next door to Quebec, because Quebec is the fourth largest producer of water power in the world. They've got the lowest electricity rates in North America, and they've got a large surplus of water power, which they're now exporting mostly to the United States. And what we should do is we should be importing that water power instead of rebuilding the Darlington nuclear station. And that would help us move to a renewable electricity future, and it would also lower our electricity bills by at least $14 billion over the next 20 years.
Now, we don't have enough water ourselves to be able to do that?
Well, we got about approximately 25% of our electricity from water power. Great water power facilities like the Sir Adam Beck Generating Station at Niagara Falls.
Okay.
But by about 1960, we had tapped out most of our low-cost water power. And unfortunately, the old Ontario Hydro made a huge mistake in 1960 when we tapped out our low-cost, large hydro water power resources. They basically turned their back on water power and started to build some of the largest coal-fired power plants in the world and some of the largest nuclear power plants in the world. And what happened? Well, our air got dirtier and our electricity rates started to go through the roof.
Now,
what they should have done is started to import water power from Quebec instead of building coal plants, instead of building nuclear plants.
What was the reasoning? Sorry.
Go ahead.
What was the reasoning behind switching from water to coal?
Well, you see, we had run out of low-cost water power facilities in Ontario by 1960.
Okay.
And so there had to be a change in direction.
Okay.
But Ontario Hydro was a large construction company that just wanted to build its own power plants. And it didn't want to reach out to our next-door neighbor and get water power from Quebec, because then the power plants would be built in Quebec and they wouldn't be built by the old Ontario Hydro.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting because, a lot of the Quebec power comes from the huge James Bay project, which was a major, the whole province was involved. It was a major, Bourras, I think, was the one who got that going. And it was a huge investment.
Right.
And, some people could say that it was also, it was an environmental issue in those areas that were flooded, in those rivers that were dammed up. But we could have done the same in Ontario, because we've got a lot of rivers going into James Bay too. We could have, instead of building nuclear power plants, could we not have built similar water generation in those rivers flowing into James Bay on the Ontario side?
Well, we could have, but the water power resources in Ontario that flow into James Bay are not nearly as cost effective.
I see.
Because there isn't as steep a decline.
Right, okay.
And so it wouldn't have been nearly as cost effective.
Okay, got it.
And you're right, with the Quebec development in northern Quebec, there were very significant environmental problems. And so we're not advocating the building of any new dams. We've got to be very clear about that. We're not advocating building new dams in Quebec. But what we're saying is the dams are now built.
Yeah.
They're not going to be torn down in the near future, for sure. And so what we're saying is, look, Quebec's got a surplus. They're exporting it to the United States at a very low price. We think it would be better for Ontario and for Canada to import that power instead of us rebuilding the Darlington nuclear station at a very high cost. So what we can do by doing a deal with Quebec is we can have lower electricity bills, and Quebec can also be better off because we can pay them more than they're getting from the Americans.
Okay, so there's one prong right there, buying low-cost hydro from Quebec. What's the second prong?
The second prong is energy efficiency. We're very wasteful in our use of electricity in Ontario. Our electricity consumption per person, our energy consumption per person in Ontario is 50% greater than that of New York State. And New York State's, a richer jurisdiction, richer society than we are. So there's no excuse for this. We're very wasteful, and so we should be investing in energy efficiency to reduce our environmental impact, but also just to lower our bills. By investing in energy efficiency, we can make our factories more productive. That means they're more competitive, and that means more good jobs here in Ontario, as well as lower bills.
Like, I'm wondering if just naturally we're going to hit a kind of efficiency in electricity usage. We've got the new LED light bulbs. We've got, LED TVs use less electricity than the old CRTs and stuff like that. Just the new technology will just naturally reduce electricity consumption. Is there any?
You're absolutely right, and we're seeing that. Now, if you look in the 20th century, throughout North America, electricity demand grew every single year, except when there was a recession. Every single year, demand would rise. At times, it used to rise at 7% per year, a hugely rapid growth rate. But we've had a huge change. Since 2005, Ontario's electricity consumption has fallen by 13%.
Is that total or per capita?
Total
Okay.
electricity consumption in Ontario has fallen by 13% since 2005, and despite the fact that our economy grew by more than 10%. So this is the first time this has ever happened since electricity was developed. So you're absolutely right. There's a profound technological change happening because of these huge improvements in energy efficiency technology. Demand is falling. And what we say is the government should do more to speed up that decline in demand, the rise in energy efficiency, which will lead to increased productivity and lower bills.
But to your point earlier, though, I think while this is amazing, imagine if we also were more responsible in our use of energy as well, because that's the technology side. But then there's still our lifestyle, and we can change a lot of our lifestyle to probably match that percentage.
Right.
Right. So because simple things like leaving lights on and all kinds of simple things that we're just not doing.
Right.
That if we did that could actually match the technology side, right? Is that what you're saying?
We could help make a contribution. Whether it would exactly match it, I mean, that's a debatable issue. But certainly we should be doing both.
Okay, so there's the second prong, and then number 3. What would that be?
We'll develop cost-effective, made in Ontario green energy. Wind power, the cost of wind power and solar has been falling dramatically, and now the cost of wind power is lower cost than rebuilding our aging nuclear reactors. And many people believe within the next 10 years, solar power will also be lower cost.
Now, is that also more stable? Because you said the nuclear power plants they're breaking down. Is wind and solar more stable?
Well, they're certainly more reliable technologies.
Okay.
I mean, we can have very big problems with nuclear. For example, in 1998, 7 of our nuclear reactors were shut down for safety reasons. 7 reactors were unexpectedly shut down because the old Ontario Hydro discovered a safety problem. They had to shut down 7 reactors. It was unexpected. All of those reactors were shut down for at least 5 years. 2 of them are still shut down. And you know what happened? Because we had to shut down those 7 reactors, we had to crank up our dirty coal plants to keep the lights on. In fact, we increased the production of coal power by 120% because of our unreliable nuclear reactors.
How many reactors do we have in total, Jack?
18.
Okay, so 7 of 18. That's a significant number.
Right.
Now, what about gas plants? I mean, of course, we had the whole debacle with those gas plants that were started and then stopped, and they just built a new one down on the lakeshore in Toronto, or it's a few years old now.
Yeah,
but,
there's the Portland's power plant on the lakeshore.
But but how is gas in terms of? It's a fossil fuel, so we're burning it. It's going to create some carbon dioxide. But is it? It's probably better than coal. But is it? Should we just forget about gas?
Well, gas is dramatically cleaner than coal. So it made sense for Premier McGuinty to build gas plants in Ontario to help us phase out dirty coal. Okay. Because, Ontario is the first jurisdiction in the world to phase out dirty coal to achieve public health and environmental goals. It's the largest greenhouse gas reduction initiative in North America. It's equivalent to taking 7 million cars off the road. So using gas plants was a great strategy, a transition option to get us off coal. But we supported it. But it's a transition option. The ultimate goal is to move to a 100% renewable grid. So we shouldn't be building new large gas plants like the Portlands. But it's a transition option, and we're not going to be move off gas in the next 5 or 10 years. But hopefully in a longer time period, we will be able to.
Now, when you talk about solar and wind, and I don't know if there's any other viable options, but everybody thought wind was a great idea, and now everybody's complaining they don't want one in their own backyard. And it seems like even the wind option is encountering a lot of opposition wherever it's proposed, and people are complaining about getting sick and stuff like that. I'm not sure why that is, but I don't have one in my backyard, so I don't know.
Right. Well, some people don't like wind power for aesthetic reasons. Many people who live in Toronto have country homes, and they want their country homes to be in a pastoral setting, and therefore they don't want to wake up in the morning and see wind farms. But there are other areas of Ontario where they're being welcomed. They're an extra source of income for farmers. So, and it's a very environmentally benign source of power, and it's also lower cost than the nuclear rebuilds. So we think, doing more wind power in areas of Ontario where it's publicly acceptable, where the community supports wind power, it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about the whole idea of, a lot of people are talking about a decentralized grid.
Right.
And the government, unfortunately, a lot of people were, the government put that policy in where they were allowing or subsidizing with subsidized electricity prices, supporting people to set up small solar or rooftop generating facilities. And then the government changed their policy, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. And it's like, what do we do?
Right.
We can't seem to trust the government no matter who they are.
Well, there have been a lot of problems with the implementation of renewable energy in Ontario. Yes, so there's no question it hasn't been done as well as it should have been done. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to do it right, because certainly renewable energy has the potential to meet our electricity needs at a lower cost and in a more environmentally appropriate fashion than rebuilding aging nuclear reactors.
So the bottom line, anything is better than rebuilding aging nuclear reactors, with the exception of coal.
Right.
Okay. So I stand corrected. I thought it was nuclear energy that was dirty. It's actually the coal energy that's dirty.
Well, they're both dirty, but in different ways.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Coal produces the greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change. It produces smog emissions that cause asthma attack or heart disease or lung disease. Nuclear has different problems. It creates highly toxic radioactive waste, will last for hundreds of thousands of years. And there's the potential of a catastrophic accident. There's the potential of nuclear terrorism. So there's different problems. Both nuclear and coal have huge problems associated with them. They're not good technologies for the 21st century. We've got better options that are cleaner, safer, and lower cost.
Well, that's interesting to me because it's, even if people are complaining about the turbine or the wind farms and having them in their backyard, it's energy. We need it.
Right.
So suck it up. Pretty much. But and in the meantime, we can still explore other potential options, but not have to rely on stuff that's so dangerous and so dirty and so detrimental to our health.
Right.
Well, people are talking about, at least a lot of people I know are talking about free energy devices, or the potential for kind of radical new
Tesla,
totally decentralized
You're talking Tesla?
free energy machines. And Tesla, that's a whole story in itself. But Jack, is there any? Have you seen any of those technologies that actually work or have any hope?
Well, free energy. You could consider solar and wind to be free energy.
Sure. Yes.
Once you invest the capital cost and install the technology, then there's no energy cost per kilowatt hour.
Yes.
It's provided by the sun or the wind, and no one's going to charge you for the use of the sun or the wind.
Isn't that the real reason that Ontario Power Hydro don't want things like that? Isn't that the real reason? Because there's less control on their part, and there's less money for them to make?
Well, yeah, wind, and especially solar, which can be on your rooftop, it makes you the electricity generator, and it takes the business away from them. They want to be the energy generator. They want to be the ones who provide you with electricity. If you've got solar on your rooftop, you're producing your own power, and so you're independent from them. You're no longer dependent on them, and so they don't like that. And also, Ontario Power Generation is dominated by nuclear engineers, and they just like building and operating nuclear power plants.
Well, the business they've got the business model, it's working. Why create something different if they don't have to, unless they're pushed to do it, right?
Well, it's working for them, but it's not working for Ontario, because it means higher electricity rates and unnecessary danger.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what can we do?
Yeah.
Get involved in the political process. You can support the Clean Air Alliance. Go to our website, sign up for our electronic newsletter so we can inform you about our campaign, so we can call on you from time to time to contact Premier Wynne or other political leaders and to tell them that you want a renewable electricity future.
Because, the bottom line is the government's not going to do it unless the people push the government to do it. Is
Absolutely.
that fair? Okay, so really the people have to get behind this.
Yes,
the people
have to put the pressure on the politicians to say no to high-cost nuclear power and to say yes to renewables, including water power imports from Quebec. It's time to end our historic policy of electricity separatism.
So, interesting, separatism with Quebec.
No, it's our electricity separatism. For years, people in Ontario have criticized certain Quebecois for being separatists, political separatists.
Yes.
But we've been electricity separatists for hundreds of years, refusing to sign long-term contracts with Quebec for low-cost water power. That's electricity separatism, and it's completely economically irrational from the point of view of Ontario's consumers.
Well, and really, you could think about hydro as being separatist as well, because it's all about what we can get at the expense of the people. So is it any different?
You mean Ontario Power Generation and Bruce Power?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
So it's separatist in that sense, right?
Yeah.
So your mission today is to raise awareness and to get the public support.
Yeah. The only way we're going to have change was with public support, public pressure on our political leaders.
Okay, Jack, so what's the website where people can go and sign up for that newsletter?
cleanairalliance.org.
Awesome.
Simple enough.
Okay, Jack, this has been great. Thanks for coming down
Notice
today.
It's alliance,
Thank you, my
not
pleasure.
separatist. It's alliance.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
All right. Okay. cleanairalliance.org. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that education. That was really, that was in a nutshell. I learned so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was very cool.
So we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back with our next guest, Alison Harvey, as Liquid Lunch continues right here on thatchannel.com.